It's 4. Brilliant piece of football there by Bobby Moore.
Hello and welcome to Sportsvibe TV. Today we're down in London with Sir Geoff Hurst and Matt Lorenzo to talk about Bobby Moore The Movie coming out next year. Before we do that though, Sir Geoff, I've got a little something I'd like to show you. My father, very young, was a very big fan of yours, and he collected all the stickers in this book. He placed you on the front just
front
there.
page, very impressive, very good.
And you'll notice Alan's best players, top of the list. Unfortunately, it does say G. Hurst.
Hurst. Well, I'm sure that's just a slight mistake, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
it must be me. It must be me.
Yeah. Can only assume. I don't remember a G. Hurst myself. And if we go back to the West Ham page in this tatty old book, you're in there as well, right next to the man.
That's a 60s and 70s era.
Yes. And we're going to talk about Bobby today.
Yes, and quite rightly.
First of all, I'd just like you to explain a little bit about your relationship with Bobby.
Well, a great privilege really of being alongside him and living with him really on and off the field for 15 years. So I'm probably best placed as well as anybody to talk about him as a player and as a person. I'm often asked, even today, who's the best player I play with. So that's a stock answer. It's Bobby Moore. The strange thing is, in a way, that he wasn't a great player. If you take Wayne Rooney, who was sort of fantastic talent at 18. Moore, when he joined the club, I always refer to him as a green youngster. He had a lot to learn, but he had one or two really great qualities. He was able to read the game then, very composed, very immaculate in his persona on and off the field. And he was a great learner, wanted to learn, and desperate to be the best. So he built on those basic qualities, which are very important, to make himself the best. If you look at pictures of him as a schoolboy, embarking, when he was brought up, he was a tubby little player. And so he's one of the first guys I saw training in a bin liner. More recent time I've seen that as a film with Bradley Cooper and Silver Linings Playbook. I know you've seen it. It's a great film where he wore a bin liner over his tracksuit top. And Moore was the first person I saw after sort of maybe a late night during the week, and he'd turn up the next day and make sure he was fit and really had a good sweat on with this bin liner. So there's many stories about him. One of the funniest stories for me was he had a great sense of humour. Probably more so when he relaxed a little bit, maybe after a glass of beer. Yeah. I think he was so concerned about being the best, and we relaxed a little bit when we had a glass of beer together. And in '66 we went to see to Pinewood Studios. After the first game against Uruguay, we struggled 0-0. They parked the bus, and we went to see a couple of films being made. There was one called The Double Man with Yul Brynner, and they were filming one of the early Bond movies with Sean Connery. We walked into the studio, and Alf, with all a group of players, 22 of us, plus Alf, and Alf looked over and saw Sean Connery and said, "Look, there's Sean Connery." And Moore, quick as a flash, said, "Alfie said, now I've shorn everything." And that was just how quick-witted he was as well. It sticks in loads of stories about that, which always... I was asked earlier about doing this film, lots of memories coming back. They've always been there. I talk to people, as I'm talking to you now, over the years about West Ham and England and memories of Moore. A lot of people ask me, what would you like? Because he was such a big figure. And so it's a great opportunity to talk about these stories online.
Absolutely. And Matt, you knew Bobby very well as well. You are the writer and producer of the film, Bobby Moore The Movie. Could you maybe share a couple of memories from your day knowing Bobby?
Well, I knew him through my father. My father and he were great friends, and knew Geoff as well. He was a West Ham man, but he also happened to be a football journalist, and he ended up being the first commentator on ITV. Anyway, they were mates, so we'd end up... he'd always give the same speech to my mum around about May. Right, that's it, Maggie, the football season is over. It's just you, me and the kids now. We'll go away on holiday. And I remember we went away to a little known place called the Algarve in 1971. And within 24 hours of getting there, we bumped into Mr. and Mrs. Mud in Pieces, Mr. and Mrs. Bobby Charlton, Mr. and Mrs. Don Reevy. And it was just all by accident, apparently. They were all giving the same speeches to their wives. So my dad was in Perda, and I wasn't far off it, just as a kid mixing with these greats. And the first morning we were there, he said to my mum, I'm just going to take the car and go for a trip along the coast to have a look round. She said, you're what? You've only just got here, why aren't you going to the beach? And no, I just thought right, she said, we're coming with you. So the four of us bundled into the car, and he drove off down the road slightly discomforted, and there, just leaning against the bar down the road, was Bobby Moore. Just, what a surprise, he said. Oh, so he said, I'll just be 5 minutes, Maggie. And he and Bobby disappeared into the bar. And 30 seconds later, Bobby emerged, came running over to the car, said, Maggie, you didn't tell me you were in here. Kids, come in for a drink. Which is an example of what sort of bloke he was. He was a real gentleman, a kind-hearted spirit, enjoyed socialising, and my dad would have had us in the car for 2.5 hours sweating away. But no, it was different for Bobby Moore.
Well, some really great memories there. Now, the film comes out next year. What do you think people might learn about Bobby in this film that not already well documented?
Well, the well-documented part is glorious, and you know, as Geoff could tell you far better than me, he was a great player. He reached the heights. He won a World Cup as a captain that nobody else has done since, and that's all pretty much up there. But there were lows that I think need to be brought out, not to depress anyone, but just so you get a rounded picture of the man. You get the whole picture. I mean, he had 2 bouts of cancer, one of which eventually killed him. As a kid, again, Geoff would know more, but he was nicknamed Chubby, and he wasn't a natural athlete, couldn't tackle, couldn't run, couldn't head the ball, and then went on to become England captain. So there's a story there. And I think most significantly, the Bogota is an obvious one, and we'll go into that. But I think that the most painful thing for him and for anybody looking on is that he was pretty much neglected in later years. He never got the respect he deserved, and he died almost alone in that regard. Working for Capital Radio and being editor of the Sunday Sport wasn't really good enough for a man like that. Then 3 weeks later, everybody's at Westminster Abbey singing his praises. So I think there's a balance to be addressed there, and if we can make him Sir Bobby, even though it's against the law, that would be marvellous.
And Geoff, a little bit about Bobby as a player once again. There's been some great centre halves for England. Has anyone ever come close to Bobby since his...
The short answer to that is no. I always say that he's in that position. We haven't, we've replaced maybe other players in our team over the years with different players in different positions. I don't think we have replaced anybody with that calibre in that position as the leader, as the captain, as the technically brilliant player he was, who took responsibility, a great passer of ball from the back, would take responsibility. A lot of central defenders today, you see them get the ball and knock it wide to the fullbacks. He could hit the front player with great pace, great accuracy. And what many people, he was a great sweeper, I guess we would call him, but many people don't remember that he created 2 goals for me in the final as a central defender. So you start to then look and elaborate on the quality of his play, and so they're the key things to me. But there's lots you can talk about. But he's playing. I think I see images of Bobby that are still there in my mind. I saw a game when he was first picked for England at quite a young age, 21, in Chile, and I saw a couple of clips, not all the game, but a couple of clips of the games, whoever they were playing against. And Moro had just come into the team, a youngster, unknown. I think he was picked quite late on before the finals in Chile. And there was an image I have of him taking a corner, already taking responsibility. You know, free kicks and corners are normally taken by the senior players, even today, or the players who've been in the side longest, if you like. And Moro was there taking the corner. An image of him, how under pressure he was sometimes, and tired in a game when he'd done a lot of defending, where there was a corner against him and he's holding onto the goalpost, bending over, still very tired, but still aware, still focused, still concentrating, although a period of intense pressure during that particular game. And they're the images I still retain of him always.
Well, Geoff talked a lot about Bobby's attitude towards the game. There's been a lot of talk about current players' attitude, as there always is in the transfer window. Do you think there's a lot that players around now could learn from the way Bobby approached the game?
Oh, definitely. I mean, his approach was always to keep it to himself and to be a role model on and off the pitch. And it took a great deal of application on his part to present that image, and he did it to the end of his days. He didn't tell anybody he was ill, for example. He kept that to himself, and I mean, Geoff will tell you, he rang his good friends when it was close to the end with no subject matter. He just spoke to them and it was only afterwards that you and the others realised that he was ringing to say goodbye. You always maintain that dignity, and there are other stories that emerge in the film. So yes, it would be lovely to see some of the current stars behaving in that way, although I would agree that they're under more pressure, even more pressure now, that everything they do is logged. Everybody's got a camera in their phone, there's Twitter, there's social media, whatever, so they have to look after themselves. But I think in many ways Wayne Rooney as his successor is a good example of someone who takes care and cares, and I know that he gives an awful amount to charity and doesn't boast about it, so in many ways there are similarities between the two.
Now, I'm going to bring up West Ham, obviously, it'd be foolish not to. Geoff, the last time West Ham won at Anfield before last weekend, you were on the score sheet. How do you think Bilic has got on so far?
Well, it's been quite a strange start to the season. I don't know much about Slaven Bilic apart from playing for West Ham and knowing he managed elsewhere, so I haven't really followed his career from a management point of view or a playing point of view. But it is a very, very unusual start to the season. You don't need to be clever to say that, winning at Arsenal, Liverpool, losing to the home games. But in terms of the collective view of them, they bought 4 or 5 players now yesterday at the transfer deadline. So there's obviously a very serious concern to make sure we are comfortably placed in the Premier League when we get into the stadium, and that will be, of course, there's always an element of risk, I think, this year with removing Sam Allardyce, who's done a reasonably good job for us, a very good job, in fact, with a year to go before we get in the stadium. But it looks good overall with to win at Arsenal Liverpool is back to back. Having not won at Liverpool for 52 years is a real achievement.